Welcome to Activate Your Introvert, the podcast for entrepreneurs and business leaders to help unlock more productivity and creativity so you get a better business. In today's episode, I want to explode the myth that loud, chatty people must be extroverts. And then I want to go on and have a similar discussion about how some people misunderstand introverts, thinking that they're extroverted. And to do that, I've recorded a discussion with a friend of mine who I know from the Professional Speaking Association, Benn Abdy-Collins. Ben is a professional communicator, and I was discussing these misunderstandings with him, among other bits about introversion. What introvert myth would you like exposed, or introvert tip discussed? I'd love to hear from you. I'd also like to receive your feedback on iTunes or podchaser.com. And if you'd like me to speak at your conference or help your team, I'd love to speak to you. Contact details are on the cover notes for this episode. Ben, welcome. Why is this a problem in the first place?
Hi, John. Well, thank you for inviting me on to your show. We can easily misunderstand each other and mislabel each other because there is this insistence amongst humans to go, you're like this, you're like that, and I know you to be that because.
Which, to a certain extent, we as human beings naturally do, because I guess it's derived from the caveman days when we would need to suddenly decide if somebody we came up against was good or bad. If I make a snap decision, what's the problem? Why is that an issue?
The world is full of noise at any one time, and we have simple ways of being able to deal with it by having shortcuts. So basically, I have this stimulus, rather than go through all the thinking through all the different types of permutations of what that might mean, I go stimulus, response. That response is, this is what I think. However, when just pausing for a moment, get an opportunity to get a different perspective. And that's what we don't tend to do, particularly when we're busy. And then snap judgments, they might be useful, but they could be potentially faulty. And those faults are where we can have issues in the relationships that we have with each other. Just that moment of slowing down, that moment of pause, which is a natural introverted thing to do, gives an opportunity to see something slightly differently.
So is this mainly extroverted problem where extroverts who don't perhaps pause as much as introverts, or is it something we're all guilty of?
I think we're all guilty of it. I think it's just part of being human. We are complex beings. We happen to have trends in particular directions. Some of those trends are helpful and useful. Some of them get us into trouble. I'm naturally an introvert, but get me on the right space, I will say something far too fast and get myself into loads of trouble. So okay. I think it's just human.
And I think that's a really important point, because introvert and extrovert are only labels. They happen to be really useful labels at times, because by use of that labels, we can apply shortcuts. We can apply some generalisms, which normally, of course, true. However, a label is not your destiny. You know, if I go to the shop and buy something labeled flour, I can still make a cake with it. It's not always going to end up as flour. Why is it that some people are misinterpreting introverts as extroverts?
It's behavior. The thing is, I'm an introvert by nature. It means I quite like being tucked away in my office and being quiet, understimulated. When it all suddenly gets noisy and busy, I almost have to have a noise filter on. Now, if I'm working, two examples of that are I'm a funeral celebrant as part of my job, and that means I turn up and I perform. It's very easy to believe that a performer is someone who's extroverted because it's quite a big performance. It's quite a big language. It's quite a big presence. But it works because there's silence around it. And if you watch many performers, they're exactly the same.
Many performers, actors, speakers, comedians are introverts. It's not the noise that they make. It's not their ability to perform that drives them. That's the way they're acting. That's not. It doesn't mean that they are extroverted, as you're saying.
I work with you. Oh, I've worked with you as president, your role as president of the London PSA, and I've been working on the welcome team. Now, under the welcome team, it's the operations for the day, and we have to be quite loud. We have to be politely in people's faces to get things happening and to get things done to get through the day. It takes a lot of very external energy, and I can only do that because at the moment the end of the day happens, I go silent. I have to be incredibly quiet afterwards. Other people are still out entertaining and involved, having conversations. I have to have silence. But people might think because I've been so outgoing through the daytime, I'm actually naturally an extrovert. No, I'm adopting a behaviorism that works for that particular role.
And I think that's really important, because one of the the fundamental definitions of introvert is around energy. And as you said, you need to recover your energy because you've been spending it by
Yes.
socializing, by being interactive with all these people, whereas an extrovert would be gaining energy from those same actions. But just because you're doing the actions doesn't mean you're extrovert or introvert. Afterwards, as you say, you need to recover your energy. And I think that's the fundamental point that many people just don't understand. And interestingly, there's a study on drugs. You do drugs, Ben, did you know?
Yeah.
The ones we'll talk about on this podcast, by the way.
Endorphins and enkephalins. Is that where you're going with?
I was going to dopamine, to be very specific. The happiness drug, for want of a better quick phrase. It's produced as all of us are stimulated in a pleasant way. Introverts have been shown to be more sensitive to it than extroverts. So take that noisy situation, you become overstimulated much more quickly than an extrovert, and therefore need to recover your energy. So it does come back to this energy rather than the actual behavior. And I think that's the important thing.
One of the most irritating things I've ever discovered is when people are literally putting me off to one side immediately. That they're offhand with me is what I'm looking for, where they have no real interest in either engaging, paying attention, or even acknowledging that I exist. And I find that very strange. Whether or not it's on the phone, because I know that they're doing it on the phone, or face to face. I think when people choose to put that down and go, who are you? I actually want to engage with you. I want to understand you. Then there is a possibility to have an intimate enough relationship to build an accord between two people because a choice is being made. Now, intimacy does not require sexual attraction. It does not require actually knowing full details about someone's life, but it's a place that's a safe zone in which two individuals can explore and understand each other better. When there's a choice to do that, then magic can happen.
We've only got a couple of seconds left, unfortunately. Time flies by when we're chatting. Thank you very much for your time. How could somebody get back in touch with you if they wanted to?
So I'm Benn Abdy-Collins, and the best way to get hold of me is bennabdycollins.com. All my details are there.
Fantastic. It's been great to talk. Catch up with you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you for listening to Activate Your Introvert, and I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. I'd love to see your reviews on the iTunes store. Thank you once again, and catch up with you next week.